Water is essential to life on Earth. Without it, organisms like plants, animals, and humans would suffer. Even though the hydrosphere is a huge portion of our planet, most of it is water we cannot use. Only 2.6% of water is freshwater, and of that small percentage, only 0.014% is readily accessible. Humans especially require that available freshwater for the development of communities and nations. Not only is water used for consumption, but it's also a habitat for our food sources, it's the corridor for transportation and communication, and it's an effluent disposal system. Water must be recycled. How do we do that? We treat wastewater. After domestic or industrial use, water runs through sewage systems to a wastewater treatment plant, where water is cleaned and deposited back into rivers downstream from its source. For our project, we decided to explore further in depth the process of water treatment. We went to visit our own wastewater treatment plant here in Regina, and with the help of manager Joseph Zimmer, discovered that treating the water is an amazing but complicated process. Water that is flushed down toilets, sinks, dishwashers, washing machines, and other domestic systems is first filtered at the McCarthy Boulevard Screening and Pump Station. At this location, any big objects that are floating in the sewage water are removed. The water then passes through the Condy Road valve chamber before being pushed down to the wastewater treatment plant. The first step of water treatment is the removal of dense inorganic materials, like gravel or sand. The main purpose of this step is to ensure the equipment doesn't get worn out and that there is no grit buildup in the pipes or tanks that could potentially damage the recently renovated system. Rotating paddles divide the lighter materials from the heavier substances, which are taken by truck to a landfill for disposal. After grit removal, the water enters the primary sedimentation tanks, where the water stops moving and is let sit for about 2 hours. This causes all the lipid components to float to the surface and all the heavier solids to settle at the bottom of the tank. A mechanical sludge scraper system gathers all the fat, oil, and grease floating on top, as well as push the muck to the bottom of the tank and ultimately to the fermenter.
The bioreactor tanks is where microorganisms eat the dissolved waste particles from the wastewater. The tank is separated into 8 different zones that have different environments for the microorganisms. The first 4 are anaerobic and the next group of 4 are aerobic. Secondary clarifiers separate the microorganisms from the water so they can be reused again in the bioreactors. There is a rotating rod that helps collect scum from the top surface of the water and sludge from the bottom. UV disinfection uses ultraviolet rays to disinfect any remaining bacteria, viruses, and protozoa that could still be in the water before it is put back into Wascana Creek. There are 4 major channels and the flow of water is controlled by gates to ensure the lamps are always submerged. The final effluent is sampled to ensure standards are being met before being released back into Wascana Creek.
The sludge from the primary sedimentation tanks is pumped to the fermenter, where it's broken down and condensed by a rotating rake and converted to volatile fatty acids, the main food source for the microorganisms that exist in the bioreactor. The solids retention time is about 4 to 6 days. The liquid that remains, called the supernatant, is pumped up to the bioreactors. The fermented waste is expelled from the bottom of the tank to the digester. 2 dissolved air flotations coagulate the waste sludge from the bioreactor by using air-saturated wastewater effluent working in a parallel manner, causing the solid particles to float to the top of the tank. The dense sludge particles are forced into a pump well by a surface skimmer and travel to the anaerobic digesters.
The anaerobic digesters is where the microbes convert organic solid waste into inert solids and biogas through anaerobic digestion. A pump mixes the tank to help break down the organic matter, and then the biogas is released in the form of a controlled flare. The digested sludge is collected for 3 days before heading to the dewatering operation. Centrifuge separates the heavy solids from any excess water by rotating at high speed. The dewatered sludge is sent onto a conveyor and into haul trucks. The liquid centrate is sent to the side stream bioreactor. The side stream bioreactor contains 2 aerobic zones and 2 anoxic zones. The tank receives the stream during dewatering and goes through the aerobic zone, where it is mixed with sludge from the bottom of the secondary clarifier. In both of the anoxic zones, the liquid is mixed with primary effluent to provide a carbon source. This process is mainly to reduce the ammonia content from the centrate.
In developing countries, water is mainly used in agriculture, whereas in developed countries, it's also used to support the industry, as well as domestic use. Regina's wastewater treatment plant is an exceptionally well-designed system. After recent upgrading, the plant works more efficiently, produces a greater caliber of effluent, can treat more water than before, and developed a storage system for storm water flow. The special thing about this treatment plant is that it adds no chemicals to treat the water, relying on microorganisms to do the job, making the whole process safer for the environment.
It is important to treat wastewater because it removes the pollutants before recycling, promotes public hygiene, and it protects local aquatic and wildlife habitats. In developing countries, there can be an inability to properly treat wastewater. If there is no proper separation of drinking water and human waste, then this will result in major disease outbreaks in communities and harmful consequences for the environment.
When most people think about water on Earth, they think of only the surface waters, like lakes, waterfalls, and oceans, and forget that there exists plenty of groundwater too. In Canada, we tap groundwater through wells and reservoirs. However, humans are greedy and the rate of use exceeds the rate of recharge, which can cause a big problem in the future once those resources run dry.